Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel, and in this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the United States of America, because a very important negotiation process is taking place currently in Miami. So the US believes a compromise on the territorial issue is achievable. The talks with Ukraine in Miami will continue on Saturday, according to Axios. National Security and Defense Council Secretary Umerov and Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine Gnatov spoke for 2 hours on Thursday evening with Special Envoy Witkov and Trump's son-in-law Kushner. The talks were assessed in the US as positive and continued on Friday morning. Witkov and Kushner briefed the Ukrainians in detail on their meeting with Putin and on new ideas to try to bridge the gap between the parties, the sources said. While the public positions of Ukraine and Russia appear irreconcilable, US officials continue to believe a compromise is achievable even on the most sensitive territorial issues. So I would like to point your attention that the meeting will continue today on Saturday. Furthermore, and few hours later, the President of the United States of America stated that I've settled 8 wars once again, and we've got a 9th coming up. So most likely he was talking about Ukraine. So as we can see, according to the United States of America and according to some officials of Ukraine, the war can be finished very, very soon. But today another important thing happened, and when talking about Ukraine, we need to understand that Zelensky is not the only probably strong person in Ukraine. He's not the only, let's say, leader in Ukraine. Yes, he is the president, as the Russians doesn't think that he is the president, but anyway, he is a president. At the same time, there is another person in Ukraine who is also a very strong person and a very powerful person, and we are talking about the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine. Basically, Alexander Syrsky controls the entire army of Ukraine, and he controls, and he is the person who will give this order to surrender, to give up territories, or to continue fighting. He is going to make this, not Zelensky. Zelensky will give this order to him, and then he will make this order to his soldiers. And during the previous 24 hours, a very interesting article was published about him. No, it's not an article, it's probably he was interviewed, and now let's discuss the most important statements during this interview. He stated that it's unacceptable for us to simply give up territory. What does it even mean to surrender our land? This is precisely what we're fighting for. Therefore, we are not giving up our territory. Ukrainian Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief Syrsky effectively declared his rejection of peace. A just peace for Ukraine means peace without preconditions, without the surrender of territory, and the hold along the current line of combat contact, the Ukraine Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief stated. So, I'm just trying to tell you that even if Zelensky will be forced to accept demands of the Russian Federation, there is a person in Ukraine, Alexander Syrsky, who will never accept this, and he will continue fighting, and who can probably even replace Zelensky if needed. As for the Russian Federation, after these talks, after these days, they made another very interesting statement. The Russians once again confirmed that Russia will continue the special military operation if Kiev rejects the terms of Moscow's peace plan, Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov stated in an interview with Russia. If we are unable to resolve the problem and achieving our goals through peaceful means, we will continue our work and do everything necessary to ensure our interests. So this is the situation, and we, as you can see, we have a lots of players, we have a lots of important people, and everybody is playing his own game. Now let's switch back to Ukraine, and let's discuss and let's start discussions the situation there. First of all, I would like to tell you that during the previous night, between the 5th and the 6th of December of 2025, Russians carried out another massive attack with drones and missiles through Ukraine. If you remember, we just discussed about this yesterday. If you remember, yesterday several sources published this map, and we discussed that the Russians began testing and stressing Ukraine air defense, and they started this process not yesterday, they started this this process several days ago. They began bombing and attacking Ukraine, trying to stress Ukrainian air defense and to make it exhausted. And this night, when the Russians decided that most likely Ukrainian air defense is already exhausted, the Russians launched their massive attack with hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles. As of the moment when I started making this video, the sources, pro-Ukrainian sources, haven't published a map where we might see the roads of attacks. The only thing we have is an article where we can see the results of work of Ukrainian air defense. The Ukrainians are saying that Russians launched 704 air vehicles through the night, and Ukrainians managed to bring down 615. So almost 100 vehicles managed to get the target and to damage Ukrainian and critical infrastructure. This morning we received several videos. We'll discuss them. But first, let's talk about the results of attack. The Ukrainian authorities stated that a massive strike hit electricity generation, distribution and transmission facilities, according to the Minister of Energy of Ukraine. There is damage in Kiev, Chernigov, Lvov, Odessa, Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk, Nikolaev and Kharkiv regions, the ministry reports. As of the videos, we have several. We have this picture. This is the settlement of Fastov. This settlement is located on the main logistic road between the western Ukraine and the eastern Ukraine. This is the railway station. This on top you can see the picture of the railway station before, and on bottom we can see the railway station after the Russian attack. So as you can see, this construction was completely destroyed. I don't think that this let's say damage stopped the entire railway service in this area, but at least people will start suffering some problems with this. Furthermore, the Russians attacked the settlement of Kryvyi Rog and the Krivorozhsk power plant. So we received several videos from the Dnipropetrovsk region. Here we can see pictures, here we can see smoke, and these are the consequences of Russian attack on some object of energy infrastructure in this area. So once again, the sources are saying that the Russians attacked the power plant. We have a video from the territory of the city of Kherson. This attack was carried out not with drones and missiles. This attack was carried out probably with an artillery system, and the Russians attacked objects of energy infrastructure. So this is the Kherson power plant, and the Kherson power plant, as you can see, was damaged with Russian probably artillery strike or maybe drone attack, or maybe what else, maybe missile attack or something like this. So this is not the only videos. These are not the only videos that were published through the night. During the upcoming 12 hours, we're going to get additional videos and updates. Of course, we will add them to map, and we will discuss them during the next video. Furthermore, we believe that in coming hours, Ukrainian sources will publish the precise map of Russian roads of attacks, and then we will discuss this map as well. But as we discussed in the previous video, the Russians carry out a very powerful attack blow to Ukrainian energy facilities, and the winter has begun. So basically, this is the first attack. That was the first attack with missiles and drones, a massive attack through December, through the winter of 2025-2026. So we can say that the Russians started their season. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction, and we have adjusted the map in the area of Orekhov. If you remember, several weeks ago, the Russians stated that they managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Mala-Takhmachka, but if you remember, yesterday pro-Russian sources published this video where we can see how Ukrainian soldiers were moving through the settlement of Mala-Takhmachka, taking new positions, and later several sources reported that Ukrainians counterattacked and managed to restore almost complete control over the settlement. And today we got this confirmation from neutral mappers. They adjusted the map by coloring almost the entire territory of the village of Mala-Takhmachka under complete control of the armed forces of Ukraine. So there was a counter-offensive operation, and we have adjusted the map. We colored this territory as a controlled territory of Ukrainian armed forces because we got video yesterday. So it's obviously that's the northern and the northwestern parts of the settlement are under control of Ukraine. On the eastern Zaporozhye direction, the Russians continued their offensive operation, and basically the Russians managed to capture the entire gap between the city of Gulyai-Polye and Russian positions. So currently there are no more territories that are in the gray zone or are in fields. Everything was captured, and the Russians got to the city limits. So this information during the previous night was confirmed by several mappers. By neutral mappers, the Russians improved their position significantly in the southeastern part of the settlement, and the Russians managed to cut physically R-85 road, according to pro-Russian sources, in its northern part. So basically the city of Guliapole currently is semi-encircled and the Russians continue advancing. As for the Novopavlovka direction, there are some changes, very important changes. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, the map was adjusted in the area of Ivanovka. We restored control of Russian forces in this area, and this morning we got report that Ukrainians counterattacked in the area of the settlement of Novopavlovka, and as a result of counter-offensive operation, the Ukrainians managed to restore control almost over the entire territory of the settlement, and the Ukrainians continue pushing the Russians from the central part towards the southern part. The Pokrovsk and the Mirnograd agglomerations, as you can see, the map has been adjusted significantly. So this is the situation by the end of the 5th of December of 2025, and as you can see, according to this configuration, the city of Mirnograd was colored as the territory under control of the armed forces of Ukraine. But this morning we have readjusted the map by removing the Ukraine-controlled territory from this area, because now we think that it's the situation of the last days that we used to see in the city of Ugledar. So the city of Mirnograd most likely will fall within the next 2 weeks. The Russians during the previous 24 hours, during the previous days, managed to improve their position significantly along the northern part of the city of Pokrovsk, TO515 road and the Olympiyskaya street. So these territories were captured, and now it's not just a simple line between the northern and the southern positions. Now the Russians have a very strong foothold between the city of Grishino and the city of Mirnograd. So we have this video published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in these fields. So there are lots of Russian soldiers. Maybe they don't have strong positions, but it's just a matter of infantry and the number of infantry that the Russians required to send here with the purpose to stabilize the situation. Furthermore, several neutral mappers also confirmed that the fields and this dense network of the fortifications were captured by Russians. So we came to the conclusion that due to this control, we can't talk that the city of Mirnograd is under control of Ukrainians. The city of Mirnograd is currently a huge kill zone without any chances and without any way for Ukrainians to escape or to evacuate themselves. Several days ago, according to information we have, there were around 1,000 Ukrainians there, but we believe that currently there are just maybe 800 or 900 soldiers left, and Ukrainians continue suffering losses. We believe that not in less than 10 days the city of Mirnograd would be captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. At the same time, the Russians continue their offensive in the area of Dobropolia. Small changes were recorded according to different mappers between the villages of Zapovedny and Zatyshek. This is the situation by the end of the 5th of December, and this is the 6th of December. The Russians are tasked to establish complete control over the railways between the settlements of Dorozhne and Rodinskaya itself. The Russians want to consolidate their troops along this line, and then from these positions, the Russians will begin offensive operation towards the settlement of Belitska. If Ukrainians lose the city of Belitska, this is going to be the beginning of complete disaster. As for the city of Konstantinovka, nothing special during the previous 12 hours. As for the Siversk direction, small changes were recorded in the most eastern part. Just yesterday, I would like to remind you that just yesterday, pro-Ukrainian sources adjusted the most eastern part of the settlement of Siversk. A few hours later, pro-Ukrainian sources gave additional updates, and according to latest updates, the entire eastern part of the city of Siversk is already in the complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. According to the gray zone that was shown by pro-Ukrainian sources, we can say that in coming 3-4 weeks, the city of Siversk will be also captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. As for the Liman direction, nothing special during the previous 12 hours. As for the Kupiansk direction, small changes on the ground on the western part of the settlement based on the report published by the neutral mappers. We'd like to remind you that yesterday we made huge changes, huge adjustment based on the video published by pro-Ukrainian sources, where we can see how Ukrainians were freely moving in the western part of the city, clearing the settlement and forcing the Russians to fall back. Today we got additional details regarding micro-districts and buildings that were taken or retaken by Ukrainians as a result of counter-offensive. You know that this is a very interesting situation that starting on December of 2025, we have 2 or 3 small front lines where Ukrainians are counter-attacking right now, trying to improve their positions and to force the Russians to fall back. This is the Orekhov direction, this is the Kupiansk direction, and this is the Dnipropetrovsk direction. So 3 directions where Ukrainians are counter-attacking, and this is a very interesting situation. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we can condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.